Hello, welcome back to the Advent alphabet of self-care. And today we've reached T, and that stands for tolerance. So I'm going to define tolerance, and I read a lovely quote which I think is really helpful. And this says that tolerance is the positive and cordial effort to understand another's beliefs, practices and habits without necessarily sharing or accepting them. So I like that definition. It's all about tolerating, understanding somebody else without necessarily having to agree with them. And the reason I chose tolerance is because when we're with relatives at Christmas, sometimes we really have to work quite hard to exercise tolerance, especially if they have different views and beliefs to us. So how can we get on with people over Christmas? How can we work on tolerating others at what can be quite a stressful time? So I think number one, it's important that we just accept people as they are and realise that we can't fix them, and that however hard we try, we probably can't change them unless they are ready to change themselves. And if they are, that's probably nothing to do with us anyway. So don't try and fix people. The second thing is to stay true to yourself and recognise that sometimes when we're with people and we get onto a contentious issue, that we can begin to become quite defensive, and we can notice within ourselves when we're getting defensive and notice that fight or flight response. And it's worth at that point allowing yourself some time, perhaps by breathing slowly or counting to 10, or if necessary you might need to leave the conversation. The third thing to remember is that people often just need to sound off, and that perhaps if you give them some space to speak and you just listen to them without actually commenting, that may enable them to feel as though they've been heard, and it might then mean that they'll move on to another topic possibly. But it's always worth watching out for trigger topics and things that really are best avoided. And so you might want to deflect something, or you just might want to be very aware of a trigger topic and try and deal with it in a non-confrontational way. But it's really important that we do stay true to ourselves and also true to our own values. And that means that we don't have to agree with them, but perhaps we might want to choose not to cause a row at Christmas. It's up to you, it depends on your values. It's also helpful to think when these things are going on, and perhaps if we do feel under attack, that actually it's not about us. That if someone's attacking us, that actually says a lot more about them than it does about us. And so we can take responsibility for ourselves, but we don't need to take responsibility for other people's views of us. That's up to them, and we don't need to prove anything or try and change them. That is their viewpoint. It may be hurtful, but that's their business, not ours. And I think it's really important at this point to talk about boundaries and keeping our own boundaries intact. And that means that we may want to tolerate people, but we don't need to let them ride roughshod over us. And so it's important for us to maintain our own integrity, to maintain our boundaries by knowing what we believe, even if they disagree with us. And so I'd like to finish with a quote from the Dalai Lama that you might smile at. And this is where he says, "In the practice of tolerance, one's enemy is the best teacher." So there's a thought, isn't it? When we're put in difficult situations, when we're with our relatives who perhaps we find difficult to tolerate, that actually is stretching us and teaching us how to learn, how to be more tolerant. So I'll leave you with that thought, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.